You have just uncovered a rarity on the Farce Night YouTube channel, a tutorial, a line-by-line how to code a website tutorial, this website to be exact. A single-page developer portfolio that gives an introduction to who you are, what you build, your experience in this field, and the ability to contact you for your services. This is what I'm going to teach you how to build today. The tools I use for this project include Vite, a rapid development build tool for modern web projects that I really just use as an improved replacement to create React app that's used to effectively build the boilerplate in structure, alongside things like pre-bundling, hot module replacement, and a handful of other features. React as our JavaScript library for building user interfaces, JavaScript as our primary programming language, alongside Tailwind. With this website being hosted on Hostinger via GitHub integration for continuous integration and deployment. Hostinger is a sponsor of today's video and we'll be setting it up at the end of the video, but I wanted to mention they're giving you a special deal that is all laid out in the description, which is actually their Black Friday deal that is available now. Premium shared hosting for only $249 per month plus a free domain with a 4-year plan, alongside unlimited free SSL, free email, and 100 websites to expand your portfolio. And I was able to get you an exclusive 10% discount on top of that deal. Just follow the details in the description. Oh yeah, and they just made me a super cool custom landing page with my face on it. So, and you can come here and just scroll down to see basically all the features that this has to offer, including one of the very important things about Hostinger, which is a 99.9% uptime guarantee. I mean, I guess everything here is important, like free SSL, super nice, free migration, and well, anything else that you read right here, but there's nothing more annoying than trying to use something that is down. You already know this if you saw my video where I talked about me trying to use a stock API and I was racking my brain trying to figure it out and it wasn't working. Well, not because my code was wrong, but because the API was down. So make sure your websites are always up, or 99.9% of the time up, by using Hostinger. I just wanted to mention that. And I'll be using VS Code and WSL2 Ubuntu, which right here is where we're going to be basically installing everything. If you don't know anything about WSL2, I made a video about it. I'll link it in the description. But in order to create a Vite project, I promise I will mispronounce that all the time by saying Vite, but please bear with me. It's pronounced Vite. npm create Vite at latest. We can name this project Minimal Portfolio. Our framework will be React. Our variant, so our language will be JavaScript, and that creates our Vite project. Now we're going to cd inside minimal portfolio directory. That way we can kind of follow this Tailwind CSS installation guide using PostCSS. So npm install d, which is the same as save dev if you ever use that. Tailwind CSS as a plugin of PostCSS, and Auto Prefixer, which is another plugin of PostCSS, and it will parse our CSS, among other things, for Tailwind CSS. This is the most seamless way to use Tailwind CSS with a build tool like Vite. And now we want to initialize Tailwind, npx tailwind init. That will create our tailwind.config.cjs file. And now we can open VS Code. Now, the way I do it, I just cd back into where I know the project directory is, which, by the way, just to clarify, this minimal portfolio is exactly what Vite created. We did not create that ahead of time. You're seeing everything being created in real time. But we're going to code minimal portfolio. And here it is. This is what Vite created, all of the boilerplate, as well as what Tailwind initializing created this config file right here. Now that we have everything installed, we have to connect it all and do a couple other boilerplate structure stuff. I'm not gonna lie, this is really boring part of the video, but it is a necessary part of the video, so let's get started. Now to finish up our Tailwind installation and connecting everything, we are going to create a PostCSS config.js. I don't know, I feel like there's another way to do it because this is assuming that it's already been generated, but we're just going to create the file ourselves. In your main project directory is where you want to create a new file. What was that called? postcss.config.js. And we're going to paste what it told us to paste, as you can see here. And in our content, we're going to copy this portion right here and paste that in our content right here for our Tailwind config file. However, that's not exactly what we need because we're using a Vite React project. So we're going to change HTML to JSX, but we are going to be using an index.html file and I'm going to use single quotes because that's how I do things. To finish up with this file, we are going to be using dark mode. So dark mode class is how you do that. And then we're going to be extending font family, enter, that's not right, enter serif. But in order for this to work, we're going to have to come over to index.html. And while we're here, let's just change this to minimal portfolio. You can, title it whatever you want, obviously. But within this file, we're going to have to link to our enter font. And that is done via fonts.google.com, Google Fonts, typing enter, selecting enter, and then coming down here and selecting every single weight that we need, which I've selected all of them already, but we don't really need these. And I don't think we need these as well. So we'll just go 300 through 700. Pop this open if it's not already popped open. You can see what you have selected here. And then copy this and paste right below title. And that's it. Is that too big a font for you? Now we have this all entered. And the reason we don't have to have CSS rules to specify families is because we already did that via Tailwind CSS. But we haven't finished this portion right here. So to add the Tailwind directives to your CSS, we're going to copy and we're going to come to index.css, which by the way, we don't need app.css. We'll just delete that. Index.css, select all with Control A and then Control V to paste what we just copied. And while we're at it, I am going to make this a little bit cleaner for myself. We're just going to name this Tailwind CSS, create a new folder, styles, just to keep things organized, even though this is the only CSS file that we need. And that's just how I work. But with that being said, we have to come over here and specify that path and new file name and Tailwind, styles/Tailwind. Okay, we're good. That is in main.jsx. I told you this part was going to be boring, but you need to do it. I'm actually going to open up a terminal inside here. Obviously, we can continue using our old terminal, but might as well have it right inside here. And we are going to npm run dev just to see if it still works after changing all of that stuff. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't because, oh, silly me, we need to remove that. Oh, failed to load post CSS config. I wonder if that's because I titled this JS, even though that's how documentation said it. Oh, of course, rename it to use the .cjs file extension. So that's what I did. And now it works. So we just had to remove that path and rename the post CSS config file to CJS. Perfect. And I believe that is all of the main boilerplate and structure things, if I'm not mistaken. Now we can get on to creating the components. So over here in source, we're going to create a new folder called components. And within components, we're going to create multiple new files, intro.jsx. We're going to create portfolio.jsx. We're going to create timeline.jsx as well as contact.jsx. And there's going to be more files that we create, but for right now, that's what I want to stick to. Oh, and footer.jsx. Now we have to add some boilerplate to these files, but at least it's our components that we're working on. Now I feel like there should be an easier way to do this. Maybe there is, I just don't know about it. But we're going to be importing React and creating a function for each one. So this one is obviously going to be the intro function as we're in intro.jsx. We're going to return a div. And then of course we have to export default intro. And we'll just do that for each one. So I'm going to Control A, Control C, come over to portfolio, do the same, or paste it by using Control V, and then just renaming each one. Obviously you can change all occurrences if you'd like, but in all honesty, it may just take longer to implement that than going ahead and typing it in real quick like so. Contact, unless you misspell it. And then footer and fodder again, footer. Okay, perfect. Now what I'm going to do is come over to app.jsx. And within app.jsx, we can delete everything within this div. I'm going to keep this div for now, remove that as well. Evidently I don't need that, but I will import React. And I'm going to import each component. So import intro If you just hit enter, it should complete import intro from components/intro. Then you can do the same thing for each individual one. So timeline, import, oh, I skipped portfolio, my bad. Import contact, and then import footer. So the reason I'm doing all of this now is just because how I work, and I just saved it. That's why it goes all out of order. I don't know if that's default in VS Code or if that's my prettier doing it by putting it in alphabetical order. I don't recall. But then in order to actually use those, you just type that. And then the next one is what? Portfolio, so on and so forth. Now I believe we still have our terminal running. Okay, so still running, and it looks like we are not running into any errors, which means our project should display nothing because I didn't type anything in. Man, this whole tutorial thing is harder than it looks. Okay, so that's intro, save. This is portfolio, save. And now that we have a little bit of data in there, would you look at that? We have intro and portfolio. I'm going to blow this up to 100%. Remind me to adjust that later. But I just wanted to do that to prove that everything is working. And we're going to finish this off. So timeline, contact, and then our footer. Again, we don't have anything in our timeline or context, so we won't see anything in there just yet. I think now we should just focus on the intro. Now we can actually get to work. So within intro.jsx, we're going to type class name, because remember, we're not using class, we're using class name for React. And this is where we style this div using Tailwind. So flex items center to, well, center the items, justify center for centering our columns one on top of the other, flex call, text center, padding top 20, padding bottom 6. Now you're not going to know all of this when you first start your own project. This is something that you play around with. Oh, do I want padding 12? Maybe. For this project, we're going padding 6. Just take a look at Tailwind CSS documentation for anything that you need. In this instance, we have padding right here. So padding X is left and right, padding Y is top and bottom, or you can specify each one, padding top, padding right, bottom, left, and then there's more. But always look at the documentation for whatever framework or tool or whatever you're using. So this is going to be all redundant information for this entire intro section. Where we get more specific is within each tag within this div. So we're going to have an H1 tag. Let's say farce. This is where you're going to have your name. And then we'll have a paragraph tag within there, software engineer, and web developer. This is however you're going to be marketing yourself. And then another paragraph with all of your other information. This is my entire bio. Save. And as you can see, each one of these is taking the styling from the div that it is inside, but each one of these is going to have its own unique styling. Like this, we want text for Excel. MD for medium is going to be text 7XL. Margin bottom will be 1. And then on medium, margin bottom will be 3. And then we want this font to be bold. Save. As you can see, the adjustments and what this medium tag does here and here is for responsiveness. So right here, you can see the font size and the padding below it as it currently sits. But as you make it bigger, that's that threshold for medium. So then of course you can also have SM for small and so on and so forth, but that's the difference there. So the text gets bigger once it hits that medium threshold, and then that padding below it gets slightly bigger as well. And we're just going to do some more styling for this, which we wanted a little bit smaller than that, but bigger than our other. So text base, to specify we want it just default size, MD text XL, MB 3, so margin bottom 3, and then font is going to be medium, not bold, but medium. There it is. And for our paragraph, same idea. We are just going to do it slightly differently. So we want this text to be small, and we want the max width to be XL. I don't want it to go beyond that. And then our margin bottom will be 6. And I actually decided to make this font bold. Save. But as we know, this isn't my bio, so I'm going to copy paste my bio and go over it. Let me format this so it looks nice and pretty. Save. And that's what it looks like. So obviously we're using all of the styling via Tailwind that we just put in. for this paragraph, nothing crazy there. We have a break, nothing crazy there. And then we have this paragraph. And then we have this space. Now, I actually called this a new line because this is the same format in which you do a new line, but I wasn't using it as a new line. I was using it as a space. And the reason being is because between this paragraph and this A tag right here, I kind of need a space. If you can see this space right here, I remove this. I can even add a space right there. Save. There's no space. That's what this is for, to add the space between the tags. And this A tag is so when you click on this link, it takes you to youtube.com/fknight, which is, well, the channel you're watching this video on. Target_blank, so it'll take you to a new window when you click on this instead of removing you from the website altogether. And then our own styling. So we have text cyan 600, which is the color. And then upon hovering, we want to show an underline with the underline offset being 2, the decoration being 2, which I think is the thickness of the line. So if we change that to 1, yeah, you can see the line is thinner there, but 2 will be the thickness of the line. And then we made the decoration, which is the underline, red 600. Again, red 600 decoration. You can see all of this on the Tailwind CSS documentation. And then we have no refer and no opener. Straightforward. We want that link. So inside the tag, Farce Knight, because that's my channel name, we need another space there to finish off that paragraph to more than 400,000 subscribers. And I don't think I need this here technically. No, I do not. And that is actually the end of the intro section, as you can see right here. And now the portfolio section, which is probably my favorite. Now, I showed you in the showcase how this can be done in like a very simple way, but the right way is how we're going to implement it right now. So for this, what we'll need to do is create a new component called portfolio item.jsx. I definitely spelled that wrong, so portfolio item.jsx. And then we're going to create a new folder called data. And then within data, we're going to create a new file called portfolio.js. And within portfolio.js, we're going to export default, create an array of objects, whereas each object is a project. So the title of that project is going to be terminal website. We're going to have an image related to that, so image URL. That has yet to be determined. The stack, which is actually going to be an array in and of itself with the stack of that project, HTML, CSS, and JS. Or I'm actually going to type it out. There's also one more thing, and that will be the link for when you click on the project. Where do you want it to take you? So let's just, for example, say fkcodes.com, because that is the actual project. Wait. There we go. Then we want to add a comma right here, and we can copy and paste this 3 more times because we have 3 projects, and we fill out that information appropriately. So developer portfolio, which is this project right now. We're using React, Tailwind, Fight. This website's actually, for me, hosted on the hackershideout.com. And the final project going to be AI Nerf gun. No image URL just yet. This was done with Python, C++, and robotics. I didn't know what else to put. I wanted to put in something like object detection or face tracking or whatever, but it wasn't as cool. And for here, I'll just put in my YouTube URL, which is youtube.be/this. Perfect. Now we're going to come over to portfolio.item. I'm just going to copy and paste effectively what is our boilerplate and then make it proper for portfolio item. Because in here, well, this is where we're getting serious. So we're going to be passing in parameters. We're going to be passing in our title, our image URL, our stack, and our link. So exactly what we just created, we're going to be passing into each portfolio item, which will then iterate through our portfolio, but we'll get to that. Let's remove this and start off with an image tag. So the source will be image URL, but this is actually the parameter, so let's do it like that. And I probably should have put something for the URL, it doesn't matter. The alt will be portfolio, whatever. Allow me to format this properly. class name. So now we're getting into the styling of it. Remember, this is of the image and the image alone. W full, height 36, but once it breaks that medium threshold, height will be 48. Object cover. Oops, let's do that properly. Cursor pointer. So when you hover over it, it turns into a pointer. And we're actually going to keep this inside of a div for now. I'm not very good at tutorials. Again, this is harder than it looks, but I try my best. Now we're going to create a div, and that div styling is going to be W, so width full, and padding 4. Within this div, we're going to have a H3 tag, which will contain our title, and a P tag that will contain our stack. But since it's an array, remember, we have to iterate through this array, through our stack, and display it as such. So this is how we do that. Stack.map item. Let me get that out the way for you. A span tag in here, and item. Now, obviously, this is not complete just yet, but we're just kind of getting the boilerplate going. And as far as that is concerned, we are good. I call everything boilerplate. I hope you know what I mean. Basically, just enough information to get it working, and then we can add the styles in later. And then within this div, we're effectively going to do the same thing, but not quite. First, we need to import portfolio from data portfolio. So all of this information, we need it in here. And then we're going to import portfolio item because, well, that's what we're going to be using. And within this div, class name equals flex column, medium flex row, which looks way nicer when it's in flex row, item center, justify center. I'm going to remove the text right here, and then within this div we have another div because this is going to act as our grid. Class name equals grid calls 1. That is if it's really small, so they stack on top of each other, but if it's medium, then we'll have grid calls 2, and I'll show you all of this actually working as it gets done. But when it's large, full screen, it'll be grid columns 3. And then we want to throw a little gap in between those so it looks nice. Got 4. Perfect. And within this div, we're going to do similar to what we just did. Effectively the same thing. We're going to iterate through portfolio. We're going to call that project because it's going to be each particular project. And then this is where we're going to be calling in portfolio item, as you can see there. Close that. And now it's time to bring everything together. URL equals this data. So project, we're drilling into our portfolio.js and pulling out the image URL for this current iteration. I'm going to copy this and paste it 4 more times, or 3 more times for a total of 4. Change title, stack, link, because why on earth would you ever type out everything? And that's how it currently looks. Not very pretty, right? That's because for each individual portfolio item, we did not add any, except for this. We did not add any, and we don't even have an actual image URL. We didn't add any styling, Tailwind. However, you can see that it properly iterates through. So we'll get the image URL here in a second. Terminal website, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, developer portfolio, React, Tailwind, Vite. You get the idea. So this iteration is working, and then this iteration is working. Beautiful. Now let's make it pretty. So header 3, where the title is, that is going to be text large or medium text extra large. Margin bottom will be 2. Medium margin bottom will be 3. And this is very nitpicking styling by me. And then font will be semi-bold. And save. Okay. And then our p tag, class name, equals flex wrap, gap 2, flex row, items center, justify start, text extra small or medium will be text small, and save. Perfect. But we're not quite there yet because within span, we also need some styling. inline block. PX2, so that is the, what is that, left and right padding. PY, so the top and bottom padding will be 1, font semi-bold, border 2, and then we're going to establish the color of that border, which is border stone 900, and then we're going to round it out a little bit, a medium amount. Save. And that is what that looks like. So obviously we want them in a row. We gave a gap of 2 in between each one. And then of course the text, you can play around with these again in order to actually understand what each thing does. I highly encourage you do that, but we're still missing something. Ah, yes. The entire div. Border 2, border stone 900, rounded medium, overflow hidden. Save, and there you go. So if you recall in Portfolio, where we're iterating through each one, we did 1 column when it's small. Gets a little bit bigger, we go into 2 columns, and then large, it will be 3 columns. So that is when we test it out right here, 2 columns, and then 3 columns. Perfect. But for coding purposes, we're going to leave it small. And now would be a good time to add the images. So you're going to come over to not dev portfolio, maybe whatever portfolio repository is linked below. Come on over here, go to public, and then go to assets. And then within assets, here are the 4. You really only need 3 of these, but the images. Here are the images. I obviously already have them locally. So what I'm going to do is drag them on over into my assets folder, go over to my portfolio.js file, and with the terminal website, I'm going to copy relative path. Dev portfolio, do the same. And then of course, the same for the AI Nerf gun project. Where are we at? Copy relative path, boom, and then save. Now that we save, as you can see, it is accessing the appropriate images for each one, and we're good. Except we aren't. Because if I were to open the terminal, and let me quit this, and let me do npm run build. So if I npm run build, it'll build for production, and it'll create this distribution folder, dist folder. And then we have assets, basically all of this. And in order to run this here, I'm going to npm run preview, and that is on 4173. And as you can see, it doesn't work. The reason being is because assets, although it is by default inside this source folder, actually needs to be in public. So the assets that contain your images needs to be in public. And then you come in here and you don't need to add public. You just remove source. Keep that slash there. Just remove source from each one. I know I'm kind of messing you up a little bit here, but then once we come down here and we npm run build for production, create a new distribution folder, our images are in there, and npm run preview is on the same. Okay, refresh, and it actually works this time. So yeah, that's how it works, and we're going to be needing to build for production inside GitHub, but that will happen later. All right, let's get back to running on dev for now. I just wanted to point that out. I did mean to point that out later, not now, but anyway, now it is time. We can remove all of this for now to do the timeline. Timeline, save, and okay, here we go. We got a timeline down here. So for the timeline, we actually have to do the same exact thing as we did for the portfolio. So we're going to come in components, create a new file called timeline item.jsx. And data, we're going to create a new file called timeline.js. And you guessed it, inside of our timeline.js, we're going to have an array of objects. If I can get this typed correctly. Okay, perfect. And if you remember or don't remember, this is what the timeline looks like. So we have the year, we have the title, we have the duration, and we have the details. So we want to type in year. And for this one, I'm going to type in today. And then the title, YouTube content creator, duration will be, I've been doing this for 6 years. And then the details, I'm not going to bore you with typing all of this information out. So let me just do this, paste. However, I'm going to make this a little bit more readable, close this. Perfect. And now we basically do that again and again and again for however long you want your timeline to be. For me, I've already typed all of this up. So I have YouTube content creator, I have solo indie developer, I have software engineer, ended it in 2019 as professional, bachelor's degree in computer science, and in 2018, first line of code was in 2013. Be creative with this, but just let people know what you want to let them know in regards to your work history. Or actually, I combined both. I combined work and school history, whatever you want. And as you can see here, and one thing you may notice is that oftentimes, like right here, I am using double quotes instead of the single quotes where I'm using everywhere else. That is because I have to use an apostrophe in bachelor's, so I just threw it in double quotes in order to use the apostrophe without it messing up the string. Anyway, save. All right, over in timeline.jsx, I'm going to copy and paste that and just into timeline item. And just like normal, I'm going to make this timeline item. Okay, perfect. However, this is not going to be a div, and we need to pass in the parameters. So the year, the title, the duration, and the details. Is that what I named it? Details, yeah. And I hope you're prepared because this is a lot. We're going to be using an ordered list, and then div, and then paragraph, and then span inside the paragraph. You'll see. But let's start off with the ordered list. Let's go ahead and style that. So class name equals flex call, medium flex row, relative border 1. Sorry, that is not a 1, that is an L. That is a mistake I have made in the past. Border stone 200, and we're going to leave it as that. And then next, we're just going to have an LI with the class name margin bottom 10, margin left 4. Within this list, we're going to have a div, and styling that div, absolute W3, H3, background is going to be stone 200. I hope I don't misspell anything. Rounded full. Margin top will be 1.5. Negative left. Negative left. 1.5. Border will be white. And I think that's good for now. However, let me show you what this does. So this is effectively the completed. I should just go to thehackershideout.com because this is actually where it's at. So what we just did was this right here, circle line, right? So here, this is the circle, width 3, height 3, rounded full, that is the color, that makes our circle. Up here with the ordered list, the border L is for that line. And then this is the color of that line just to give you, and this right here is the positioning of these circles down here. I just want to give you a slightly better idea of what's going on right here. And also we could just go ahead and close that div like so. P tag will be class name. That's not right. All right. Flex wrap, gap for flex row, items center, justify start, and text extra small. Oh, and if it's medium, we're going to make that text small. Then within this P tag, we're going to have a span tag. I told you there's going to be a lot going on here. So within this span tag, we will have an inline block, padding X2, padding Y will be 1, font will be semi-bold, text will be white, BG stone 900, that's a background, and rounded will be medium. That right there was for the year tags. I'll show you. Or it's fairly self-explanatory considering I have to pass in the year parameter right there. But we're going to make it a little bit cleaner, like so. And right under that, but still within that P tag, we're going to have a H3 tag with the text being large, the font being semi-bold, the text being stone 900, and that is for the title. And then right below that will be a div with class name, margin Y1, text will be small, font normal, leading will be none. I hope I'm not misspelling or messing up any of this. Text stone 400, and this will be the duration. And we will have another P tag, And this p tag is actually going to be the details. So class name, margin y to text base. Base is effectively the same as medium, which in this instance is, or in all instances, I guess, is normal. Font is also normal. Text stone 500, and we'll keep it like that for the details. And I hope I did that right. That is for timeline item. Now we have to iterate through in timeline. Now we could just come over here to portfolio and then copy and paste, but there's enough that needs to be changed in here that I want to go through it with y'all by doing it from scratch effectively. So let's remove timeline, keep the div, style the div. Flex, that's not flex, flex, flex column. Medium, it would be flex row. Justify center in margin y will be 20. Within that, we will have another div tag, styled of course. Actually, do I need an extra div tag? Oh yes, that is right. I need this extra div tag because the section title, which we have not discussed nor gone over just yet, will be right here. It needs to have these styling attributes as opposed to these. These are unique to the details that we are iterating through. So W full, or if it's at medium, we want W712 because it looks prettier to me at least. I actually don't think I need another div, so I'm actually going to remove that div. If I realize I need that, I think I had it for a different reason, but we're going to make this, we could just add the width here. Width full or medium, width will be 712 because it looks prettier that way. And within this single div, we will start off with the timeline iterating through that we have yet to import. So we need to import timeline.js, and then we need to import timeline item from timeline item and save. And then within this div is when we can iterate through. So timeline.map, just like we've done many times before. And within that, we're going to be calling, we're going to move that first. We're going to be calling timeline item. And within timeline item, we have the year equals item dot year. We have the title that equals item dot title, and I think you get the idea. I will actually go ahead and paste duration, and then details. And I think that should be good. Are we still running on terminal? Yes, we are. So 5173. This is blown up a bit. Let's go back to 100%. Close this so we can see everything. And that is not correct. Let me find out why. And this is the type of thing that will happen even if you have created the website before. Oh, well, I found a typo already. I wonder if that is the only typo. Interesting. So I found another typo in the first p tag of our ordered list. Within list under div right here, where item center. I'm sure y'all see this as I type it, but I am rolling, so I don't see it exactly. Oh, I'm an idiot. Not that that's anything new, but I actually did need that other div. I just looked at it and it seemed like I didn't need it, but I assume this is the issue. So we're just going to properly format this real quick. I'm going to close that because it's in my way. Make this slightly bigger, and then within here we're going to have class name. And we're going to have the width in here because this is for the entire section, whereas this is actually going to be for each individual iteration, unless I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, perfect. I still may not know what I'm talking about, but at least that fixed it. That is, I believe, the complete timeline section of this website. Now we can move on to the contact. And then we're going to start styling. So class name for the outer div will be flex column, margin bottom 10, and margin X will be auto. And within that div, surprise, surprise, we have another div. Class name, flex, justify center, items, center. Let's try not to misspell anything this go around. And then of course, as you know, this is a contact form, so we want to create a form. This action is going to be a get form action, so let's just get the boilerplate in here right now. Again, I call everything boilerplate. And then this is going to be your custom slug right there, but we'll have to remember to come by and change that. Let me properly format this to my liking. Method will be post. And class name, so our styling for this, flex column, width full, unless it's medium, then we will do the same width as the timeline, 7/12. Within here, we have our input tag. Is there an easier way to like make sure this gets properly formatted instead of me having to do this every time? Probably, but this is how we're going to do it. So type text, our name will equal name, and then we're going to have a placeholder of name. Should I be using double quotes or single quotes? I never know. I feel like everyone has their own preference. Padding will be 2. Background will be transparent. Border will be 2. It'll be rounded, medium around the corners. And then typically we have a focus of an outline. We're going to specify that we do not want that. We're going to copy and paste this for the email section. So we'll keep that. The name will be email. The placeholder will also be email, so people know what to type in there. However, the styling is different. Margin Y will be 4. Padding will be 2. Background will still be transparent. Broader. I misspelled border right here. Transparent. And you see it trying to autofill because, well, I have already typed this before. It is also the same as right here, actually. I only added margin Y2 just so it would give it a little bit of space between this one, I guess. So it is the same information. Apologies. Text area. Okay, here we go. Seriously, can we have some proper formatting? And my dog maybe not bark in the background. All right, so text area name. Well, this is the message. We don't need the ID. We're going to have a placeholder. With this placeholder being message. I know, surprise, surprise. Oh, nice, they're cutting the soybeans behind my house. Well, that's always nice. Column, negative. Rows, 10, and class name. Oh, whoops. Sorry. You want to make sure you do this inside the text area. I think that would be pretty beneficial. I'm just so used to this formatting slightly differently. And class name, I think you guessed it, will be the same exact as everything else, except we're going to have a margin bottom of 4 because we have a button below here. BG, transparent, border 2, rounded M. You know how it goes, although it did not do focus outline none. Now, a button tag. I already spoiled this for us. This is going to say work with me. All letters being capitalized. At least that's how I prefer it. And we actually want to specify the type before the class name styling, which is button. And then the class name, text center, inline block, padding x-axis will be 8, padding Y will be 3, width will be max, text is base. Yes, this is a lot. Font is medium. We are medium. We're also going to have rounded corners. We're going to have text white. In the background, we're actually going to do something a little bit unique. We're going to add a gradient to R. Does R stand for red? No, to R. I forget what R stands for, but it's from yellow, I bet it says in the documentation, 500. From yellow 500 to pink 500. We're going to add a little bit of a drop shadow. By a little bit, I mean a medium. And then on hover, we're going to stroke white. Save. Is that it for the contact form? It is. So as you can see, we have the gradient from yellow, which is a little bit of yellow, to pink. You can actually see the pink. Hover stroke white. What does that mean? Because it's not doing anything, is it? If anybody would like to tell me why I put the hover in there when there is actually no hover going on, you know, I'd appreciate it. Huh, interesting. Oh, and I'm going to add that so it's a little bit neater. And that is it for the contact form. Wait, I lied. It is not it for the contact form. You're going to want to come over to getform.io and then you just generate endpoint for free. You add in your full name, email address, password, And if I must say so myself, I like our form better than their form. I'm just saying. But I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in. And then once you're in here, it will look a little bit different. But for these purposes, create minimal portfolio so you know what's going on. Just like time zone, whatever your time zone is. And then you create it, and then and if my memory serves me properly, it'll tell you what your custom slug is. And then you just come in here and you copy paste it right here. F/paste. But that's it for the contact form. So now for the footer, it is very straightforward. All you're really going to do is come down here and paste in this. So I have this as social icons because this is a lot of code and it's actually not necessary technically, but this will be included in the GitHub repository. So if you want to check out the actual social icons and copy and paste it from there, feel free. But in this overall div, since it is the footer, we do want to add a little margin, padding, not margin, 5 text center. Although, should I have margin instead of padding? I'll oftentimes unintentionally use those interchangeably. And then for the paragraph, because this will be separate from the social icons, text will be small, the margin top will be 2, and the opacity will be 50. So you could just make it gray instead of change the opacity, but this is just how I did it. The and copy is the copyright symbol down here. This is the current year, which is 2022. Once it hits 2023, it'll automatically change. And then Farce Night, I created it, all rights reserved, because that's what every single other footer on every single other website says. Okay, that's it. And remember, if you do not see it down here, make sure that you did what we did previously in app.jsx. It needs to be imported. Import footer from components footer, and it needs to be displayed. All right, now we're in the home stretch. We're going to do the title, then dark mode, then GitHub and Hostinger. So let's get it done because it's basically already there. So in components, we're going to create a new file called title.jsx. And of course, we don't want to type in all of that typical boilerplate crap. So we're going to Control-A, Control-C, what we got in footer, paste that in title, and then remove everything from inside this return because we're going to be rolling with an H1 tag. But also this is going to be title, and this is going to be title. We're going to be passing in the parameters of children and ID. And within the H1 tag, we're going to do ID equals ID and ID. And then we're going to style it equals quotes text 2XL. Font will be bold. We will have an underline. That underline will have an offset of 8. Decoration will be 4. MB will be 5. Text stone 900. And then within the H1 tag, if we can get this properly formatted, will be the children being passed in. So now what we need to do is go to where we need the title. So we need one on timeline and we need one on contact. So over in timeline, we're going to import title from title. Perfect. Save. And then we're going to be implementing that title within this inner div, but before we iterate through as title, timeline, and then that title tag will close. If we save, there you go. We can see the timeline. We also need to do that in contact. So import title from title, and then we're going to go inside form in order to do this. So title tag here, this will be contact, save, and that is there right there. The reason why this is inside form instead of outside form, because it seems like it would make sense to be outside form, but I want this styling for the title as well in regards to how this is situated among the page, just like this is situated among the page. That is it for title. Now let's do dark mode. And that begins within app.jsx. This is going to be a little messy, but I mean, it's just kind of how it works. So we're first going to import useEffect from React as well as useState. What I'm actually going to do, and I apologize for this, I've been trying to type everything out for you, but I think this may be a better way to go about it. So I'm going to come in here and paste. I want to make this slightly smaller so you can see it slightly better. And this is where we use our useState and useEffect a couple times here. Whereas in useEffect right here, if the window default preferred color scheme is dark, then we're going to automatically set theme to dark. Otherwise, it's going to be light. So that's what's going to happen when you open the page. And then we're going to have to handle theme switch. We're going to call this in an on click in a second here. It'll set theme to dark if we click it and it's in light mode, or light if we click it and it's in dark mode. And then this use effect is going to see if theme is dark, and if so, we're going to add dark. If else, it's going to remove dark and set our theme. And then we have our sun, and then we have our moon. So this isn't applicable to the actual functionality of the switch, of the toggle button, but I'll show you exactly why we have these in here and how we get them as well. So down in return, remember we're still in app.jsx, we're going to throw everything inside just an empty tag. All right, and then we're going to have a button tag right above here. I'm going to properly format that. And this button, type equals button, on click equals, you guessed it, handle theme switch. And then we're going to set in the styling of class name being, let me close this real quick, fixed, padding 2, Z10, I forget what Z means, right 20, top 4. The background will be violet 300, and the text will be large with the padding 1 and rounded MD. Wait, we have 2 paddings in here? I'll find out why I have that in a second. Okay, and then we're going to set theme with this toggle as dark with sun and moon options. And this is what that looks like. So this is the moon. So we click that, it would activate dark mode once we have that going, and this is that sun which we have created up here. Now the way we created this is over in hero icons. We just typed in sun. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you. And then in sun, I just copied the JSX, and then I pasted the JSX. As you can see, that is the SVG with all of that information, the path, which that is what is drawing out the sun, and it's just, this is the same thing, just properly formatted, and that is our sun. Same idea, you just come in here and type in moon. We'd be able to copy the JSX, and then just type in moon. The only difference here is that we changed moon to white instead of the current color because of how this is going to work with the dark mode, which we'll implement right now. That was just implementing the button. I should probably get rid of this part right here, right? I didn't add anything else in here that I don't need. Okay, so if you recall at the beginning of this project, inside of our Tailwind config file, we already implemented the dark mode class. Make sure that is implemented. And then we just implemented, 2 seconds ago, this button right here so we can toggle dark mode and light mode. So how do we implement it? So we have a few different areas in this project where we want to implement it, but the main area will be right here in the app.jsx file. For example, in this button, well, we want the background to change when we are in dark mode to be orange 300. Okay, and now when we click on this, as you can see, the background changes to orange 300. And then for what is effectively the default background throughout the entire app unless otherwise stated, for example, this is background white for this entire thing. That would also apply to all of these unless we come into intro and is there a background in intro? There's not. Bad example, is there a background in here? Yes, unless we otherwise specify that we don't want the background to be white, this would override that because it's more specific. Anyway, so let's just get the broad dark modes underway. So dark background would be stone 900. And then for the text, dark mode, we're actually going to make the text stone 300 as default and override it with white as needed. I actually don't think that is the most efficient way to go about it, but that's how I started off the project, and I have a lot of specific white text in here. You could just make this white if you want and then just play around with the colors to fit your needs, but that's what it does. So if we save that, you'll be able to see, well, one, you can see how all of the text has inverted. Well, most of the text has inverted, and then the background is inverted, but now I remember why I had a separate div inside of this div. So for the width and all of this, what we'll need to do is we're going to Control X, which cuts it, which also copies it in case you didn't know. I'm going to add another div tag, and we're going to pull the end of this div tag over here so that all of this is inside this div tag, have another class name, and inside this class name have the width information, so that way it fills out the entire thing. I'm also going to get this off the screen. So now let's hop into intro. Inside the intro header 1 tag, which is the name, my name, Forrest, or your name in this instance, and for the text, I'll put it after the text right here. We're going to do dark. So this is exactly how you do dark mode. Make sure the other things are implemented and that you're able to toggle it. And then text white, because remember it's stone 300 right now. If we do text white, now it's white. Would you look at that? And that's the only thing in the intro file. And as you can probably see here, we have a handful of things to do in the portfolio section, because this has this black outline, black outlines, and then it just doesn't look too nice. So what we're going to do first and foremost in this A tag is implement the border. So dark border white. So when dark mode, the border will be white, save, and there it is. We're also going to use this same exact snippet of code on the outlines right here for the stack. So if we go down and find where the stack is, where the border currently sits, so behind the stone 900 border, we're going to paste the dark border white, save, and there's that. But I also think it looks better for these to be white as well. So what we're going to do is come down to the title, and after the text right here, it may be smarter to put the dark all the way at the back instead of next to the actual text so you can see it better, but tomato, potato. Dark text will be white, save, perfect. And we're going to copy that and then paste that down here for our stack as well. So where are we at? Right here. So all the way at the end, save, and then our stack. Perfect. That's all for the portfolio item. Now let's go to the timeline item where we have a little bit of dark mode to implement. Basically everything within here, starting off with the line. Well, we're going to dark border stone 900. I lied, 700 is actually the correct amount. I'm going to copy this. That is in our ordered list, by the way. And then down in this div right below here, after border white, we're going to paste the same thing, but change that to stone 900. And then dark background will be stone 700. Save. Very nice. And if you're wondering, yes, it would have been smarter, I think, to implement dark mode as you build a project like this instead of doing it after the fact, but I didn't. So here we are. Okay, so right here, we're going to have dark text stone 900 instead of our span. And then we're also going to have our background in dark mode be white. So if we save that, you can see the adjustments there. Instead of our H3, dark text white, save. Now we can actually see that. And then within here, dark text stone 500, which we're also going to almost exactly use right here, but instead of 500, we're going to be making it 400. A very subtle change, but a needed change in my opinion. And unless I'm mistaken, we only have one more dark mode thing to implement, styling to implement, which is our title. We're going to make white in dark mode, timeline, contact, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think so. It looks good. What do you think? This looks pretty good. Now it's time to actually show off this project by uploading it to GitHub, implementing a GitHub action to build it, and then auto deploying those build files to Hostinger in order to have a live site. We're going to go through all of it. Now let's get it all set up. Right now it's on localhost. We want to push it up to a GitHub repository, which in theory you want to be doing periodically throughout the entire project, so you actually have version control history of the project. But this is a tutorial. So what you're going to do in your GitHub is create a new repository. And we're going to name this repository Minimal Portfolio. Is that what we've been calling everything? Minimal Portfolio. And I'm going to make this private so I can teach you how to make it private. If you make it public, it's slightly easier. So private, in case you want to keep it private, and then create repository. No README or anything. And don't use either of these in this instance because it's kind of a blend of both. We have an existing repository, but it's not initialized just yet. So this is what we're going to do. So in our project, we're going to open up the terminal view. If you don't already have that, then open up a new terminal over here, but I already have one open. And within your minimal portfolio directory, type in ls just to make sure, okay, this is everything that you have. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is delete this distribution stuff that we built earlier. I was just showing you that as an example. So go ahead and delete that permanently. We don't need it right now. Everything else should be good. And then I'm going to close that back up, pull this up here. Let me give you a better view. So ls, that's what it looks like. Perfect. But this is not a local Git repository yet, so we need to initialize this. Git init. If you don't have Git installed, then go through that process. It's not very difficult. So we've initialized this Git repository. Now what we're going to do is git add dot. So this adds all of our files. And then we're going to git commit -m initial commit. There we go. So that committed all of these that we just added. And we're going to come back over here and we are going to copy this right here. So for whatever yours is, don't copy mine, copy your own. The git remote add origin so we can connect to that remote repository. Paste it, enter, perfect. Then we're going to git push or u origin master, enter, and that'll push all of these files that we previously added, then committed, and now pushed from our local repository that we just initialized to our public, or it's technically private, but to our remote repository right here. So now that this code is here, let's hop over to Hostinger. So again, if you haven't already, go over to hostinger.com/ForestNight and get the Black Friday deal, and make sure you enter my name Forest for an extra discount code on top of that, and log in. So I forget if my screen looks a little bit different from yours, but I am in my H panel. So I'm in my H panel in home, which the Hostinger H panel is very, very good, but claim your free domain. So we're going to claim the domain. Now I have to decide what domain I want. How about we try this, forestpnight.com. Because I feel like this is a URL that I should have, but it's available and I don't because some random person has Forest Night. I assume his name is also Forest Night. And there we go. So I'm going to claim my free domain. It is free for the first year, claim domain. And if you're wondering why it's not at thehackershideout.com, it's because I'm doing this after I already did that one. And then I don't want you to see my domain profile information. And then if you have an existing profile, then go ahead and use that. Otherwise, add new profile and then just fill out your primary details and you'll be good. But of course, I'm going to use existing profile, finish registration. Continue. And I'm going to go ahead and verify this in my email. And if I refresh this, yes, okay, perfect. It's nice and verified now. So this is how I do it. I come down here when you're at this screen. So like basically you go to domains, you select your domain, and then you go to add website. I'm going to select my hosting plan, confirm, and then it'll connect your website successfully, not your actual website, but just it'll connect a website. So basically this hosting panel to your domain, forestpnight.com or whatever yours is obviously. Now is the fun stuff. So we're going to come down here to advanced, go to Git. So when you get here, I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger. Is that good? Okay, you're going to want to generate an SSH key if you have a private Git repository. If your repository is public, then you can skip this next part. This is how we connect our private repository to our private GitHub repository. So generate SSH key. Don't show this to anybody. Copy it. And then go back to your GitHub repository, go to settings. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger as well. Go to deploy keys, and we're going to add deploy key, and then Hostinger portfolio. As you can see, I've already typed in before, and then paste your key. You don't need to do anything else other than add key. As you can see right there, you have your Hostinger portfolio key added. And then, so now this is connected to that, but it's not doing anything just yet. In order to do that, we want to come down here and create a new repository. And by doing so, we have to actually go back over here, go over to code, and then we want to copy this right here. So click on code, make sure it's SSH, and just copy, come back over to the H panel and paste. And if you're using a public repository, then you're going to want to use the HTTPS link right here, copy that and use that. And the branch is actually going to be a build branch, and then we can create a new repository. Once that is done, we're going to go ahead and just click, and we'll click on auto deploy. You want to copy your webhook URL. Again, don't show this to anybody. And then click this link right here, set up webhook on GitHub. This will take you to exactly where you need. Otherwise, you just come over to settings and click on webhooks. And inside payload URL, you want to paste that URL that you just copied, the webhook URL. Everything else should be good. You don't need to touch anything. Add webhook. Perfect. So we have our webhook hooked up. We have our deploy key hooked up, and we have auto deployment hooked up. But we're not done yet. We need to implement a GitHub action, because remember, this code right here, we do not want to push to Hostinger. It will not work. Instead, we want to come over to GitHub Actions. And we're going to skip all of this and set up a workflow yourself. And we're going to title this, I guess you title it whatever you want, in this instance, publish.yaml. And our file is going to be as such. I'm going to paste it right in here and then go over it because I expect you to do the same. The name, you can name it whatever you want. We're just going to generate a build and push to another branch. On push branches master, that is the branch that we're going to be building from, and indicates to run this script whenever there is a push to branch master. And our jobs build will run on Ubuntu latest. The name will be build and push, because that's fairly straightforward name. The steps will be git checkout, and then we need to install all dependencies using npm install. We need to build like we did previously using npm run build, and then once we build that, we are going to be pushing the dist folder from the build branch. That is exactly why when we were over here, we specified this branch to be build, as you can see here. Everything else is effectively default and should work with what you have going on regardless. And because this is an action, this will run every single time there is a new push to minimal portfolio, starting with this one right here, create publish YAML, commit new file. So by committing that, that is a new push, or well, you know, it's technically just a commit, a new commit, as you can see right there, which should spark the GitHub action to begin. It is now queued. Now it is in progress as of 13 seconds ago. And 25 seconds later, we have successfully built it. And that successful build should trigger the auto deployment that we just set up using our webhook. And to test that, we'll come over to Files, File Manager Beta, and within public HTML, there we are, we have all of those files. So if we come over to forestpnight.com or whatever your URL is, you can give it a couple minutes. It may not be there immediately. We should have our information. And there we go. We have our website. It is now live. And every single time that you commit to your repository, it will automatically build it and auto deploy it so you can make changes incredibly easily. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a nice developer portfolio out of it. And let me tell you one thing. A lot of people will advise you to potentially use this or a project that they create and create a tutorial about on your own portfolio. And I'm not going to say not to do that, but I will say if you do put this developer portfolio as one of your portfolio projects, you better be damn sure of what all of this means. You can forget a few things here and there, but why do you have timeline.jsx and timeline item.jsx, and how is the iteration through the timeline.js file work using timeline item.jsx? That was just a little disclaimer. I hope y'all enjoyed this tutorial. This is, again, a rarity on this channel. But if y'all want more tutorials, like if you actually want more tutorials because from me, let me know why. Do you just like the way I explain things and I go over things instead of just type things out and hope you understand it? That's something that I've been trying to practice, which is why I explicitly mention it. Let me know in the comments section, so then that'll be some words of encouragement for me to actually create more tutorials in the future. Otherwise, you may not see any more. So appreciate you watching. Give it a thumbs up if you found any value in this. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want more videos like this or any others regarding computer science and software engineering. And I'll see y'all in the next one.